Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Food Explorer podcast. My name is Colleen. Of course, I am your host. Every week, we're doing another solo episode this week. I have been working so hard to line up a bunch of amazing interviews, and I am happy to say we have some really exciting things coming up. So, yesterday, we actually went to a place that is specializing in charcuterie meats. And we just went to see their new facility. And suddenly we were in a full blown tasting event and we had a lot of fun. I left very, very full. But then we continued on and went to this really cool brewery that does amazing stuff. And I'll just tell you this about me. You might know this, you might not know this. I am not a big drinker. I don't drink a lot. It's just me. I love eating snacks. So before I started filming this episode, I fueled myself with some Hello Mochi donuts, which are incredible and I love them so much. If you have not had a mochi donut before, Hello Mochi in the city that I live in, run by Cheryl and her husband Sang, is bar none the best of the best. And I adore going there. And so you notice, for those of you that are watching this, my background is a little different. I am cat sitting right now at this beautiful house. And I thought this would be perfect to have this really cool background for the video. So if you're listening to this, what is behind me is all these stacks of games. They love collecting board games, and it's really a very cool setup in the house that I'm at. So they've got beautiful artwork everywhere, and it's just absolutely lovely. They've got some incredible pieces that are mind blowing. So what I want to do this week is I'm just trying to see like what is going to be interesting and fun and unique and things that you want to know. And I thought, well, let's do some episodes where we kind of pull stories in from around the world that are current, or maybe they are, leading into an event that's coming up. Maybe it's something that's just totally wild that's in the news about food, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around it. It could be anything. So this week I have sort of 4 stories that actually all neatly tied together with a bow. And I don't know that this will happen every time I do one of these, but this just happened to be how it happened this week. So let's dive into the first story. And I did a lot of notes for everything because I want to make sure that I really got sort of everything correct that I want to talk about. So the first news is that last week, Alicia Kennedy, who is a food writer and currently living in Puerto Rico, just released a new book. And the book is called No Meat Required. And this is a book that's published by Beacon Press. It's a nice short book, 232 pages. I just got my copy. And it actually falls into the culinary biographies and memoir. So there's not recipes in the book, but it's more of a history of vegetarian, vegan cuisine throughout the years. And it's going to be an interesting read. I'm actually really excited for this. I love historical looks at food systems. And if we look at our current system today, sorry guys, it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable the way that we're going. And it's interesting because I was vegan for many years, 7 years actually. And the reason that I went vegan was totally random, really. I had moved from Denmark, where it was clean eating. I wasn't eating garbage food in Denmark. You didn't go to McDonald's in Denmark and eat garbage food. And then I moved to Las Vegas. And let me tell you, that whiplash put my stomach into a terror. And I got very sick. I was very, very sick. And part of it was because I was in the States. I'm like, let's eat all the junk. Let's eat every, burger that's out there. Land of excess. That's where I was living. And it wasn't very long after I moved there. I started my new job and I was ill. And my coworkers were actually coming into the bathroom and checking on me. They're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I am 100% not okay. I do not know what's going on." And it was just like a full body rejection of the garbage food that I was eating, which is just, there's no other way to put it. I was eating garbage food. I'd come from Denmark where everything was fresh. You went to the grocery store every day. You picked up your 1 to 2 items that you needed to make your food for that night, fresh bread that you ate that day. We didn't eat junk food because junk food was really expensive. So, there's basically a fat tax in Denmark. You want to eat junk food? No problem. Go right ahead. However, friend, you're going to pay for it. So for me, it wasn't feasible to eat junk food, which is very different than other countries where many people do eat, junk food, whatever you categorize as junk food, whether it's fast food from, a chain restaurant or, eating chips. Now, let's just also, I eat my fair share of chips. Dill pickle chips. I love them. I'm going to eat them. Come on now. But sort of that food that's not really food category, you know? And so it was a real big change for me. So I was actually vegan for quite a while. So I'm always interested in learning other historical perspectives about vegan and vegetarian. Nowadays, I'm omnivorous. I do eat both. We don't eat it at every meal, though. And in upcoming episodes, we're going to actually talk about this. But this really ties in really interesting because the food system the way that it is right now, we call that SAD diet, so that standard American diet in the States, and all of these things are kind of converging. So we've got the let's eat local, let's support local, let's also go to Costco and buy the family size of everything that we could possibly need. So I'm very excited to dive into this book. I came to this great place surrounded by books to cat sit. I actually left the copy of my book at home, but I did bring a whole bunch of other books with me. Don't worry, I brought a lot of books with me. Now, this leads into, beautifully, the fact that Alicia Kennedy, who's living in Puerto Rico, is actually going to be at the Terroir Symposium coming up. Let's pull up my notes here because Terroir Symposium is this is an international organization, and they just happen to have a symposium that is happening in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, at the end of September. There's going to be 400 attendees, and these are producers, artisans, media for the food industry, general managers, hotel, restaurant, chefs, foodies, storytellers, you name it. They're all going to be there. About 20 countries are going to be represented because they are actually bringing people in as featured speakers from around the world. And Alicia Kennedy is going to be one of them. So she is well known for her Substack, From the Desk of Alicia Kennedy. So something you can subscribe to. You get emails, you get private access to podcasts that she does. But she's going to be one of the featured speakers at Terroir Symposium. There's going to be a couple hundred companies there. So wineries, breweries, retailers, tourism boards, commodity groups, your restaurant groups, your local restaurants, all of these different food producers are going to be at this event. I did not go last year, and I don't have FOMO, that fear of missing out for pretty much anything. I'm one of those people that I'm like, I missed it, whatever. But I gotta tell you, when I saw these pictures from the event last year, a little tear came down my eye. I thought, well, what the heck? Why did I miss this event? I didn't know anything about it. And it came up in my Instagram feed through a friend. And I'm looking at all these pictures of these workshops and panel discussions and meals and wine tastings. And I thought, I do not care when this event is happening in 2023. I will be there. So it just so happens that it perfectly times out that it's right before my little business, my chocolate business, has farmers market events in the mountains in Canmore and Banff, Alberta. So I'm going to head up to the symposium in Calgary. We're doing 2 days at SAIT, which is the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. And they have a huge cooking program there. And so we're going to have 2 days at SAIT with the workshops and sort of all the hands-on stuff. And then the third day is going to be in the downtown core in Calgary at one of the lecture halls. And that's where they're going to have like panel discussions and all sorts of other stuff going. From there, I'm going to hop, skip, and jump over to Canmore and Banff in the mountains, where I will be doing a farmer's market. And then very quickly turning around, getting back to Edmonton for another event. So it's kind of a wild ride that's happening in between being away and teaching hospitality. So one of my other hats, as you heard in episode 1 with Fab Tanner, was that I teach hospitality. And so I'm really excited because I have this amazing hospitality course coming up. Now, with the Terroir Symposium, on top of the event that they are doing in Calgary, they have other events. There is an event happening in Italy in November, kind of, that gastronomy, food, focused, food-centric event that's happening, which is going to be really great. They talk about, coming to the event, getting inspired, sharing ideas and resources, belonging to a community. And that's really, for us at this Food Explorer podcast, is creating that community. We started writing sort of our mission statement down the other day, and I realized that creating a food community of people that want to tell their stories, that's really where I fit in. That's really what I want to do. And as I said, started this podcast, going through and meeting some different people over this past week and realizing, oh, you're going to be an amazing guest on the podcast. So I've been practicing like my filming skills and all this stuff. And so I thought this would be a good little segue into another speaker that's going to be at this Terroir Symposium. And her name is Hazel Lee. So Hazel Lee is this amazing personality in the chocolate industry. So she created the Taste with Color chocolate tasting flavor map. And I have one of these. And I take them to my chocolate tasting event. So when you do a tasting event, you can kind of just lay out the products and, go through and talk about flavors, tasting notes, textures, aromas, all those things. But I have found it is quite helpful if you have something called a tasting wheel. So basically it's a wheel on a paper, and there's the inside part of the wheel and the outside part of the wheel. Inside part is those big categories: sweet, nutty, fruity, so those ones. And then the outside is a breakdown. So fruity would go into raspberry, strawberry, blueberry, quince, cherries, etc. Nutty would go into hazelnuts, almonds, macadamia nuts, etc. So when you're doing an event and somebody says, oh, I know this flavor. Why can't I identify this flavor? You can start looking at that flavor wheel and realize, I know what I'm tasting. I talked about this in episode 0, how they're just a really valuable tool. And when I was at a brewery last night, which is very unusual for me, but it was super fun, I wished I'd had a tasting wheel with me. I wish I could have pulled it out of my pocket and been like, all right, tasting wheel time. Between the 3 of us, we did figure out most of the flavors, which was great, but it was so interesting that, that brain firing that says, this flavor. And one of the flavors was actually like a salted black licorice that I love because I used to eat it in Denmark. And I told my dining companions, I used to eat so much of that salted licorice, the black licorice in Denmark, that I almost had like a little hole in my cheek from eating so much of it. But yes, it's an acquired flavor. Yes, not everybody likes it. I personally love it. So back to Hazel Lee. So Hazel Lee, what she developed was this color tasting map. And so this is for people that have synesthesia. So synesthesia is where you see in color. And I have taken this map to some of my in-person events, and I have actually had, on a few different occasions, people that look at the map and they're like, This 100% makes total sense to me. I get this. That my brain works like this. They're looking at the map and they're like, yes, ma'am, I get this. So who is Hazel Lee? So she's not only the creator of this tasting map, she is a judge at chocolate competitions all over the world. She is just so passionate about chocolate. She's a member of the Academy of Chocolate. She judges in different Academy of Chocolate awards, the Northwest Chocolate Awards. She is part of different organizations that really educate people about chocolate. And so at this Terroir Symposium, she is actually going to be there. And I kind of want to take my chocolate tasting map and fangirl and be like, will you sign my map? And she probably would. I do have to pack light though, because I'm actually taking a bus to Calgary because, we got to coordinate with the farmers market. And I cannot have chocolate sitting in the vehicle for 5 days, before I go to a farmer's market. So there's a little bit of coordinating happening, but it's okay. She is just an incredible resource for chocolate. She's a lovely, lovely person. We're Instagram people. I that's where I know her, air quotes know her. I don't really know her, but I follow her on Instagram and I absolutely love the work that she does. So we are actually in the process of creating our own tasting wheel for the business. So this week I'm sitting down with my designer to taste. I'll bring her chocolate. Don't worry. I always bring people chocolate when we have meetings, but we're going to work through what our tasting wheel is going to be. This then ties into, so we have Alicia Kennedy's new book. Alicia Kennedy's going to be at the Terroir Symposium. Terroir Symposium's happening. People coming from around the world, bringing in Hazel Lee, who is also part of the chocolate world. And from that, I want to kind of finish off this episode with talking about, because there are going to be a lot of restaurants at this Terroir Symposium. And the very sad news that we just got in our area last week, the week before, about a beloved restaurant called Chartier. And Chartier has announced that at the end of September, they are going to be closing their doors. Why do we care? Well, we care for a lot of reasons. One, Chartier is an amazing, cute, adorable little French-Canadian cuisine restaurant in the town of Beaumont. So Beaumont is just south of Edmonton, the capital city in Alberta. Beaumont is a tiny little French-Canadian community. It's a nice, cute little place. I think I've said cute 10 times now. I'm sorry. But when Chartier was opening, they did a Kickstarter. And so for those of you that don't know, Kickstarter is a program where you can crowdfund money for your project, your business, your big idea, whatever it is that you want. And Chartier was the first of its kind in Canada to do a Kickstarter that was as successful as it was. Nothing had ever sort of happened before them. So they raised $107,975. They had just under 600 backers for this project. Chartier then opened up their doors to, the accolades, all the people that were so excited to have this beloved treasure in their community. They had successful years. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, then trying to recover from the pandemic. And what has ended up happening is a few things. One, food costs have gone up through the roof. So they did a thing called crisis pricing last year. And in an article last year, they talked about how, they weren't really sure what restaurants were going to make it through the fall last year. Now, fast forward 1 year later, and they are now the restaurant that is not making it through. They have a lot of loans. Getting yourself through the pandemic ended up with people taking out loans. The food costs. I can't say it enough times. And it's something that, we all in the food industry struggle with. So I look at my products right now and I should raise my prices. I want to stay in business. But how do I have the perceived value of what you're getting, which is already a luxury product, to then increase the price more. And so that was one of the things that Chartier was really struggling with, was when they put out that plate of food and they want you to have an incredible meal and experience. They don't want you to go away and be like, did I eat? They were number one, hospitality all the way. And so, when they're looking at their food costs and what they can, reasonably put on a plate to sell at a certain price point, they were finding it was out of balance. The perception of what you're getting versus what you were getting was very different. We even had this conversation last night, talking with a gentleman who was a manager at the brewery that we were at. And he was saying, he wants to put more on his charcuterie platters, but how can he do that when people have a price point that they're willing to pay? And when you go over that price point, you are out of the loop. People are not going to buy the product because the perceived value, the fair market value, is not congruent. So Chartier, beautiful little restaurant. I only got to go there a couple times. And part of that is I live on the north side of the city that I am in, which is just north of Chartier. They're in Beaumont. I'm in Edmonton. And, round trip, we're looking at over an hour and a half of driving. And I just kind of was. So when I was in Beaumont, I would go and I would get little snacks and stuff, or I would be at events where they were the caterers for the events, and their food was delicious, absolutely, bar none. I really enjoyed it. So I just put an article together, which I'll link below. It's in Substack, and I just talked about what do we do? What do we do when a restaurant that's beloved closes? How do we prevent this from happening? Nobody wants their favorite place to close. Nobody. If my favorite place closed, I would be very sad. I say this in the article. I would go and sit on his doorstep. You know who you are. But for a lot of people that lived in Beaumont, this was the place that they celebrated all of the special occasions, right? And Chartier, make no mistake, they did everything right. They were local. They supported local. They hired local. They were a part of the community. They created a beautiful ambiance for people. They really did an amazing job. So, for you, the listener, the viewer, wherever you're getting this podcast from, what would you do? We've had lots of suggestions. Chartier even put out a list of, in our last 30 days of business, here's what you could do to really help us, because, when we come out of this, it's not like we walk away scot-free, right? So, they've said, come in, get some to-go orders, get to stay if you can, get something from the bakery. They have a little bakery associated with the restaurant, and the bakery actually has pickup locations in different places. So, pre-order, get those, but what they can't do is, that gift certificate that you've been holding on to for the past 5 years, they can't be redeeming giant gift certificates, right? Like, they are in a crisis right now. And I'm happy to say that, the Edmonton and surrounding area has really stepped up and been at their door being like, feed us, please. We want to come one more time. But of course, it's too little too late, right? And where do you draw the line? Where do you say, we can't do this anymore, right? So what do you do? Fab Channer, who was in episode 1, I asked her, a little conversation over text, and I said, what would you do? Anything different that you could see that might have helped? And one of the things that she does really well when she supports a restaurant is she hosts events at those places. If she has an event to do, something for clients, something for staff, she goes to her favorite place and she actually hosts the event there. Doing collaborative events throughout the year, hosting events. And I was like, that's such a great idea, because it's something that we do with the different places we work at, where we work together with them to do different things. So, it is something to think about. And, how do you make sure that your favorite place doesn't close? So if you have any ideas or things, if you're starting to look at some of the places that you love and thinking, oh, what if they close? What is it that you might suggest that you could do? So with that, That was sort of four things. Four things. So we have new book out by Alicia Kennedy, no meat required. Terroir Symposium, which is bringing in people from all over the world. I'm going to be there. I'm so excited. I think I'm going to actually take my podcast recording stuff with me and just see if I can record some stuff. I'm practicing with a little like portable setup, which is kind of exciting. So we'll see how it goes. Hazel Lee also going to be there, creative a chocolate map, and inspiring us to up our chocolate tasting game. And then of course, when a beloved restaurant closes, what the heck do we do? So with all that is our news for this week. This is the Food Explorer. I am Colleen, and I have some crazy cool episodes coming up. And you definitely want to make sure that you don't miss them. So you know what you got to do. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you get it. And make sure that you check out our Substack because it's pretty cool as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Have an amazing day wherever you are. And I appreciate you.